Hello and welcome to Rise and Shine with Alissa. I am your hostess, the consultress, here to bring you innovative and amazing conversations from the front lines of entrepreneurship, investing, and parenting because we are what we do for work and who we are in life. I have the pleasure and the privilege of having some amazing conversations behind the scenes in my pursuit of development for my business and for my life. And today I have the extreme pleasure of introducing you to Adrian Betts, the Expandur LLC. Welcome. How are you today?
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for asking, Alyssa. How are you?
Really great. Well, good now. I'm just saying, we were in the green room just before this, having a little bit of chit chat time, and this episode will be airing very timely because the industry that you're in happens to be something that at the end of the year not doesn't wind down; it actually winds up. So we met in a networking circle, and I was so fascinated to learn that your brain thrives on creating efficiency and effectiveness using the same resources. And I was like, oh my God, cut from the same cloth. Growing up in my family's business, it was all about making sure that nothing went to waste, that everything was optimized. And it just was like the mindset that I grew up with. So hearing that that is your discipline, I'm like, we have to talk. So I want to open up that cranium of yours that I know is just super duper chock full of info and inspo. How did you find your way into your discipline and give us a little, 30-second backdrop of what you do in the world?
Yeah, so what I do is I have a background in warehousing. So distribution centers move product to the stores, fulfillment centers, that's what you order online. And then last mile delivery stations, that's the people who bring it to your front door. And so for the last 24 years, that has been my experience. I've had a wide and variety of experiences at some of the names that you're very familiar with. And I take all that experience now and I'm moving to the small and medium sized guys who want to be the next medium and large size guys.
Excellent. So, I am thinking big box and delivery giants like Amazon and things like that that move product from your clickety clack to your knockety knock. Yeah.
100%.
So you're the magic that happens in the middle. So, how did you get involved in this industry?
It all started back in the year 2000 when they were outsourcing call center jobs and a lot of jobs overseas. And I was very concerned. I just graduated high school, and then September 11th, 2001 happened. The airline industry was like in bad shape, and I wanted to be a pilot. And they were taking pay cuts, they were getting furloughed. It was just bad. And I'm like, good grief, what am I walking into? So I said, what's something that can't be outsourced? And no matter what jobs you send to whatever corner of the planet, in order for that box to move within America, it still has to be done by somebody in America. So that's what made me branch out to all modes of transportation. So whether it was rail, truck, train, or ship, I just said, look, moving product is never going to go out of style. And that's how I got into the industry. And I started to gravitate and just naturally follow the course of in a warehouse and being inside the four walls.
Hmm. So having that early experience around something that was kind of recession proof, something that would always be needed, you found yourself a niche learning opportunity. Similar to, I mean, I'm always going to bring this back to my experience in the bagel business because, hey, that's where, my formative years of my career were built. But knowing that you're sitting there watching something happen and wondering what's the next step, where is this going? And oftentimes, when you're in someone else's system, you can see it differently than when it is your own system. So, do you bring that perspective of outside objectivity when you're looking at the systems and processes of businesses that move physical product?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to prep everybody. I do a lot of analogies. And so there's a thousand different types of warehouses. Like there's a thousand different types of cake. But the main ingredients of cake are oil, egg, flour, and sugar. right? So we're going to start with that base. And that's really what I'm about in the warehouse is what's the oil, what's the egg, what's the flour, what's the sugar. Now, if you say, hey, I want to make a German chocolate cake, yes, we can go and get all the German, the chocolate, and the cake to make that. If you want a lemon cake, we can go get the lemon. But I definitely focus more on the blocking and tackling. Hey, does everybody know what to do? Do we have the right amount of people? Do we have the right people? Are we bringing them in the right way? Are we giving them time to ramp up? And are we cross training them? And that's just a start, right? You see, it's just a base. So I'm not going too deep. I'm focusing on making sure that our base is extremely uh, sound.
Right on. So making sure that you have all the big pieces in place. I think there was an analogy in the personal development industry about, a metaphor for life. Filling up this jar, you have like a
Mhm.
pile of boulders, a pile of pebbles, and a pile of sand. What do you put in first? And how do you fit the most stuff in? And as you have, spoiler alert, in case you haven't watched it, go do it right now, pause and go. You got to put the big stuff in first so that the smaller things and the siltier things can filter in around those most important pieces. If you're baking cakes and you don't have sugar, well, you're not baking cakes anymore, are you? Right?
No, you're
So
not.
having those fundamental pieces, I think this is sound business practice for pretty much any business on the planet because knowing what your fundamentals are doesn't matter if you have a website or if you have all those fancy, glittery social media things. If the core of the value you're producing is not sound or is not fully formed, it doesn't matter how awesome your marketing is, it's still going to fall apart. So, from a business perspective, how did you get to doing this for yourself as a consultant?
Um, so it that was by happenstance, and I really like that word. So circumstance is what's going around you, happenstance is what happens to you.
Hmm.
And so as I, wanted to believe that you can do 20, 25 years at one company, retire and things like our parents did, that very quickly became unrealistic. And I found it out the hard way. Many pieces of my heart are left along my career path and whatnot. But as I went to each one of these companies, I started to see that they all face the same problems. Um, and so it didn't matter. It didn't even matter the size of the company, right? So, I tell you, Walmart, Target, Amazon, FedEx, UPS, they all struggle with some of the same things that the small and medium guys are struggling with. And the solution works whether you have 1 million employees, 100,000, 10,000, 1,000, 100, or even one. So as I started to see a pattern, regardless of where I went, those are the things I started to say, okay, take a mental note of this, put it in your toolbox. What is the recipe of how to make a cake in a warehouse operation? And as I got more experience, I started to perfect what that recipe was.
Hmm. Right on. So for the entrepreneurs out there, anybody noticing a pattern? we, we live our life, we have all these experiences, and we start to recognize things that repeat. Like this is the human condition. We always look for anomalies and improvements. We are created to be creative entities that solve emerging problems. So as we go along our journey here, for me, that looked like being in a family business and then residential and commercial real estate that bought other businesses, starting my professional career in, financial services, moving to banking and wealth management, going, all right, let me try out these MLM businesses. I want to see what these are about, becoming a leader and salespeople. And as I went through all of these different iterations, that if you threw them all down on a map somewhere, they would look like disparate pieces, but the genius comes from being able to thread through and find the commonalities and divine wisdom from those experiences. Like that's the value in today's day and age and in emerging business models, that wisdom of having the experience and being able to predict a failure before it happens and get in front of it and solve it before you bleed out and have to go ahead and do, disaster management. have you had any of those experiences of like seeing the thing, being like, this is going to happen, and then it happens, and being on the cleanup crew?
Yeah, absolutely. So, most conversations people have with me, they're like, why does it feel like I know how to run a warehouse? And it's because I tie it to some experience that we've all experienced in life at one time or another. In this case, it's whenever we first learned how to roller skate or ride a bike or skateboard, and our mom or dad or some adult said, don't go down that hill. And we're like, whatever, adult. And we go down that hill and we come back up crying, oh, with bloody elbows, bloody knees, scraped up, right? Because they knew something we did not know. One example, um, we we purchased a company and they said we are going to really market what you do through peak season, through the football season. And I mean, they absolutely crushed it. They say we're not going to talk about brick and mortar. We're going to talk about .com. We're going to talk about the e-commerce platform specifically. And football season ends in February with the Super Bowl, and that's when the fiscal year started for this company. And quarter one is usually the light period of volume, but as we were ramping up, we started the fiscal year very strong with this new market that we had activated. And as a operations team and as an HR team, we were not prepared for what we clearly stated we were going to do from a marketing standpoint. Hey, we're going to increase awareness. That's going to increase our sales volume, which it did. We did not increase our headcount from an HR perspective and recruiting. So when the fiscal year started, all this extra business we got, all this extra volume immediately was all past due, creating a negative customer experience. I said, hey, I think we need to hire more people. They said, shut up. I was like, okay. Hey, everybody's going to run one extra day of overtime. And I said, man, this is bad. It's February. We shouldn't be running overtime. 2 weeks later, hey, I think we need to hire more people. They said, shut up. So now we're running 2 extra days of overtime in the lightest period of the year. And eventually at the end of the month, the organization said, hey, look, we're creating such a bad experience that we're going to stop this marketing venture until you guys can bring the head count to levels that can sustain this volume. So it was something that had we listened, had one department listened to the other department, we could have made the correct moves to not have to create that disruption for our customers in the first place.
I mean, foresight, right? But do you think there's value in having experienced the, I think we're going to fall down. Oops, here we go. We're falling down. And now how do we clean it up? What So let me phrase this another way. Sometimes when people are getting into a new venture or into a new evolution in their business, they think they know it all
Mhm.
and they go full head of steam forward. Like you were talking about, the marketing and the, sales side of the business. And when the systems piece falls down short, they're surprised and then they learn and then they iterate. So there is value, I think, in making the mistakes and learning from them. And from where you sit now, having lived through all of those mistakes, do you think it's more valuable to help people solve mistakes before they make them? Or do you take people on that already have skinned their knees a little bit and understand the value of expertise to be able to get ahead of the next problem before it becomes one?
So it's a little bit of both. Um, they say you should learn from the mistakes of others, and those who fail to learn history are doomed to repeat it. So you can, take either path you want, and neither one is incorrect. Um, and there's a story of fables, like Aesop's fables, where if you listen to it, you're like, hmm. So when you get to a situation, you recognize, hey, I don't need to go headstrong. Maybe I need to take a step back, strategize, and think and go a different way. Um, so I would, and this is where I have the conversation with people, and I use analogies with things that we've gone through in everyday life to try to get them to understand that, instead of just seeing things at face value. Let's take a step back and look at the whole big picture, and let's truly understand what's going to happen long term if we just go straight forward, or if we take a less direct route. What's the ultimate outcome going to be overall? How much are we going to make? How much are we going to lose? What's the overall cost?
Yeah, right on. So I am hearing there's room and grace to make mistakes, and also learning from the mistakes of others sometimes gives you that shortcut that requires an investment up front, but ultimately creates more sustainability and profitability through your efforts. So as an entrepreneur, innovating, iterating, making pivots throughout the last 20 years of my career, I've watched myself lose time, lose money, lose effort, and have to go back to square one and start over. So this mindset around, seeing the patterns, seeing the forest for the trees, and like kind of plotting out ahead of time what makes the most sense, and then also still being willing to go and innovate on the fly, to be willing that all the plans that we make, the best laid plans, the value is in the planning, not necessarily following the plan to the letter, because we're bound to be in motion and develop new awareness as we move into that plan that we just made. So, do you find yourself with clients often talking about making revisions to the plan, making real life, real time updates to it? How does that system go once you kind of plan out the big stuff? How does the iteration and innovation happen in the in between, especially during preparing for a peak season?
Yeah, so I'm gonna take a step back, and then I'm gonna take a couple steps forward. So number one, it takes us about 10 to 12 months to learn how to walk as humans. It takes us about 24 to 36 months to learn how to use a restroom without a diaper. So you can't expect anybody to get anything right the very first time, and so there's the room for grace. Um, and so then after that, it's you know get something on paper, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it on paper, right? Hey, count to 10. Hey, look, all I heard is 1, 5, and 7. And we're like, well, that's not 10. I'm like, I know, but it's 1, 5, and 7. So as you reiterate, you start to realize, okay, I think this is step 2. I think this is step 3. This is step 6. It's still not sequential. And then the more you do it, you'll start to realize the exact steps you need to go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So for example, here's exactly what we do with SOPs. I don't care what you actually have. I'm going to say, give me everything you have within 24 hours for all the functions. Whether you give it to me or not at the end of those 24 hours, I don't care. I just want to know what you have. Some things you're going to have an airtight SOP on. Some things you're not going to have anything on. Grade A through F. That's fine. Within 30 days, what are we going to have that's better than what we started with? And then at a minimum, we update that at the end of quarter 1, quarter 2, and quarter 3. And we don't make any updates in quarter 4 because it's the busy season and we just need to make it through with what we have, and we can refine later. And then you repeat into the next fiscal year.
Beautiful. So the iterations and the updates and the reflections starts at a intake, ground zero, kind of setting up a foundation of awareness of what's there. 30 days later is an improvement on that first iteration, and then at least quarterly, being able to assess, refine, and refocus the projections, the systems, the SOPs for those in the way back seats, standard operating procedures that allow your business to be systematized rather so than creating something new or doing it differently every single time you do it. That's really crucial to have points where you're going to reflect and retool. For the service providers or the service-based entrepreneurs, I find that this really works well in terms of I have the book over here, this philosophy called the 12-week year. And so this here has you envisioning annual goals on like every 3-month basis. So instead of getting lost in the sauce from January to March and then saying, okay, now I'm really dedicated. And then summer comes and peace out. And by the way, it's full. So hurry up. Because by the time, November comes, I'm going to be comatose for 2 months. This system allows you to pretty much take that industrial size planning initiative and boil it down for you, even if you're a solopreneur or you have a small team, being able to plan and refocus on a 9 to 12 week calendar helps you to be able to see your progress, and you can measure backwards easier. Yeah, how many times you find yourself at January 1 as an individual going, oh, right, I'm making New Year's resolutions that I made last year in the last 15 years every single time. And by the time January 3 rolls around, it's like you forget it all. So I love what you said about having at a minimum every 3 months a refocus period, because that's a really great standard practice and metric system that I've seen work throughout any layer at any level of business, whether it is that mom and pop retail shop, owning your own real estate investment properties and doing management of the assets, building your own intellectual property and putting it out into the world. You still have to measure and refocus, because what we know getting into a business or getting into an initiative is only the first piece of the recipe. We get to put all the ingredients together and figure out what we have in the middle and then say, now that I know more, now that I have more, I have more information for me to make an even better decision moving forward. So I love that cadence of every 90 days. It's something I use in my business, and I even took it and made it more unique to me, because I found that in business for myself, I know that once the end of October happens to like mid-January, end of January, I'm pretty much going to be on family focus mode. So everything that I've already got, I'm not interested in putting new systems in place at that point. I just want to have everything lights on, planned and ready to go by the end of October, so that November comes, December comes, even January comes, and I can continue doing what I'm doing, but I'm not trying to put anything new on my plate, because I know that in that 3 month, 4 month period, it's going to be a lot different of a flavor of navigation of my life and my business balance. So giving myself grace to put that my year is actually chunked out in 4 month chunks. I know from end of October till mid-February or so, that's like prune and release time for me. I'm looking at what's not working. What am I not going to do anymore? What did work? What can I have grace and gratitude for the year or 8 months prior to this? And then I pick back up and say, okay, February to June is like this energy that comes alive. I don't know if it's, the coming springtime or the days start getting longer at that point, but I know that I have a 4 month run until I get like senioritis, as it were, and I want to just be like off in the woods and at the beaches and traveling and going places, because that's the rhythm of my life. So being able to have that like into spring to summertime, and then in from the summer into the fall, those are my two big productivity seasons in my business. And then I take that 3 to 4 month chunk right around the winter time and really do what the trees do. Just prune it all out, see what still works, like, put things aside that are already had their season, and start to innovate and kind of percolate what's coming. So based on, your reflection with your clients and the things that you put into place for people, do you have a system like that for your own business, for yourself as a management team and your associates?
Yeah, absolutely. So number one, I haven't read the 12-week, but as soon as you put the 12-week book up there, I understood what it was about. Again, trying to tackle the whole year is like ordering an entire pizza and trying to eat it that has not been sliced. Right. So nobody, it sounds so weird to say who would try to eat a whole pizza that's not even sliced. But that's what we do. And that's why we fail so quickly and so easily. So a 1 million square foot facility, I'm not trying to fix that one time in every 12 months. But what I do is I go through it, 4 times a year. And so actually my third service is actually planned for, I start with the busiest quarter of the year, which is quarter 4, and I make sure that we don't overwhelm ourselves when all the volume and all the work is here and all the bustle is there. But quarter 1 is actually tougher to make a profit in because it's the lowest period of sales revenue with the highest amount of overhead. And it's also why most people struggle with their New Year's resolutions. There's a holiday hangover. Nobody's buying anything from Christmas till Valentine's Day. It's just diapers, toilet paper, and water. No holidays, no parties. It's cold, it's dark, it's lonely. And so you're sitting here trying to do something you haven't done for the last 90 to 180 days, cold turkey. Of course, you're going to fail within 3 weeks, right? So we have a strategy that says, hey, look, we know from the midpoint of quarter four to the beginning of quarter one, things are going to drop off starting from Black Friday. They don't drop off on December 26th, they drop off from Black Friday. There's no new season that comes in. So we know that by December 26th, we're already set up for a dead period all the way until Valentine's Day. Right. And that's the difference between what I do for my clients. And I don't know what everybody else does, but I don't just plan for peak season. I plan for every season. And it's easy to make money when you have sales revenue. It's very difficult to be profitable when it's at its lowest point. And quarter four can be up to 40% of the volume, with quarter one being as low as 15%. So and a lot of people have a much tougher time tightening their belt or eating right than they have a time of just eating.
Right.
So, and same in business, same in with your personal life. And I say the warehouse is alive, and it's the same thing, same concept with being a human as with running a corporation.
Food for thought. How we do anything is how we do everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whether you're in business helping, warehouses deliver all of the wishes globally, or whether you're in your cyber silo delivering your services one-on-one and building your frameworks and your systems, I'm going to pull this concept and take it home with me of planning through the low seasons and knowing where they are. Don't just run like hell to make the end of the year and then hit the beginning of the next season, whether that's January 1 or February 15 or whatever that is in your business. Don't hit it exhausted thinking that you're going to now have the same production and the same expectations. Every season has its flavor and its mix of activity and preserving the capital that you have, or preserving the activity and the resources that you have, keeping those lights on in a warehouse that still has to pay for temperature control and all of the space that it needs to provide for a giant volume that comes through en masse, and then trying to maximize that. It's the same space and it's the same place, but now you have to dim the lights, you have to maybe cull the staff. And think about that as a metaphor for your personal business or for your investment business. There are periods, and every cycle, every business has its economic cycles. And when is it that your stuff comes in and out of cycle? Is it on par with the 4 quarters of the year, like Adrian's business, going in and out of high volume production quarter 4 and lowest volume in quarter 1? Or do you have your own flavor out there? Is there something you can identify in your phases of business that allow you to see things more clearly and prepare to run through that finish line rather so than run to it and try to stop? So, your insights here today, Adrian, have been super valuable. I've really enjoyed kind of trying on the metaphors that you provide. I think they're super fun, and also they're broadly applicable. So it doesn't only apply to a warehouse production business. I find that it kind of is applicable no matter what type of business that you are in. And so for those people who are looking to find out more about you, get some more of your awesome analogies and metaphors, or look into hiring you if you happen to be in the warehouse space, where do you want people to go to connect with you?
I want them to go right here.
Right on. Expandur LLC, and you want to spell it for them?
Yes, it's X is in X-ray, P is in Papa, A is in Alpha, N is in November, D is in Delta, U is in Uniform, R is in Romeo, L is in Lima, L is in Lima, C as in Charlie.
C as
Expandur
in
LLC.
See as in see you later. I love this. I've had such a great time talking to you. And, it took me a while to understand what exactly those letters spelled. I'm like, expand your LLC. Like, I'm thinking expand your LLC. And it is right, but you don't spell it that way. It's X, pand. You are like the text shortcut for your LLC. I love it. Thank you so much for being here with us. You've given me lots of food for thought and analogies to put forward in my own business because I love mixing it up. So cheers. Catch us every Monday, folks. We broadcast live and premiere at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time every single Monday with new, fresh news that you can use to innovate your life, innovate your business, and be a better person in this world because we are in this age where nothing is going back to normal and everything is up for review. So stay tuned, meet some interesting people, and expand your network too. Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you.